Well, now that it's several days removed from the re-signing of the NAFTA agreement between Canada and the United States, I'd like to give some thoughts on it. Essentially, this is what's being called the U.S. Mexico-Canada agreement, and we're not allowed to call it NAFTA, even though the actual paperwork for the agreement still says NAFTA. But, whatever. Essentially, Trump has run around claiming that this is a huge victory. He's created the greatest deal ever. He got rid of this terrible deal where poor America, the victim of the world, was being exploited by powerhouses like Mexico and Canada. And now he's rewritten a good deal that makes America great again. Yeah, except it's kind of not true. When one sits down and actually looks at the substance of the agreement that was signed between the two countries, the changes to it are simply cosmetic. Say you have something that was coming through at 57%. It was changed to 54 or 58. Essentially, everything that made the NAFTA agreement exactly what it is still in place. It's still there. It's just very slight cosmetic changes. There is no radical change to the agreement, but don't tell Trump that, because he seems to be of the impression that he has rewritten and created the greatest deal of all time, even though that's literally not true. NAFTA remains almost completely intact. There was no point to rewriting the NAFTA agreement whatsoever. But his fans, those ridiculous cultists, really believe that he did some super amazing thing and helped them. Nothing's changed. Nothing of any substance. Okay, a bit more American dairy products can come in to Canada. A little bit, like almost an insignificant amount. But other than that, nothing. Nothing's changed. He acted like there was this great victory, but nothing happened. But here's my criticism of Trudeau. Trudeau should never have signed this agreement at all. Because you are such a weak-willed, insert expletive here, there was no point to this all. This whole thing probably cost more money to rewrite than would be even generated by any changes in the agreement. The United States unilaterally just disregarded the entire agreement, placed tariffs on that threatened, frankly, both economies, both the United States and Canada. On what basis? Simply wanting to change something, and then ended up not changing very much anyway. Trudeau, by signing this agreement, told the United States that you can just violate any agreement that we sign, and then we'll just bend over and sign another one. That's exactly the message that he sent to the American public. That's the message that he sent to the U.S. political establishment. He told them that we will roll over any time the U.S. president wants it. Now, aside from filing a complaint about Trump violating the agreement and placing what are essentially illegal tariffs on Canadian goods, Canada went to the proper authorities, the World Trade Organization, to get some relief from the actions from the United States. And nothing happened. China's doing that right now. They're going to the World Trade Organization to deal with the violations of the agreements, the trade agreements that already exist. Well, what exactly do you expect to happen? The World Trade Organization is not going to do anything. What do they do? Forcibly shut down U.S. trade? Force the United States to trade things that they don't want to trade? It's simply ridiculous. There is no actual accountability for the United States in this situation. The only thing anybody can actually do to deal with this ridiculous manner that the United States has been acting is if they could just violate any agreement they want, and there's no consequences for their actions, is to cease trading with them. Refuse to sign a new agreement. Now, a lot of countries cannot afford to do that. It's just not possible, and the United States knows it. That's why they're doing it. But there has to be some kind of consequence for the way the United States is acting. Right now, the European Union is trying to get the euro into the position that the United States now holds right now. China is trying to get the petro-yuan into the world's trading currency. And Russia is they're trying to do that, but they're in no better position. They're not in as good a position as either one of those powers to do the same. People are rising to challenge the hegemony of the US dollar, and thus the power and the control that the United States wields over the world's economy as a result of that. Maybe this has to happen. Maybe there has to be a real mix of world currencies in order to avoid this kind of situation. Because the United States has dug its own grave in this situation. They are the ones that have acted in bad faith. They incessantly complain about everybody else, and particularly Donald Trump complains about everybody else, but then turns around and is the biggest pile of liars and thieves the rest of the world has ever seen, violating their own agreements. Then maybe this is the wake-up call people need. That at least if you want to maintain your own independence, at least economically, to be able to trade with whoever it is that you want to be able to trade with. You know, that whole idea about the free market and, you know, voluntary cooperation and all that complete nonsense, because that's not how it really works in real life, that capitalism doesn't really represent in before the state. This is the wake-up call that the world needs. And I think that now that's really being taken seriously with all these countries now seeking to go around the US dollar. The European Union is looking for ways to prop up the Iranian financial sector by going around US sanctions in order to help them, because they had kept up their part of the agreement in the JCPOA. So this is these are my thoughts on the matter. I think that my main criticism here is Trudeau essentially admitting that he's weak and that he was not willing to actually stand up to the country. However, there is one last point I'd like to make. Ontario Premier and pile of living garbage Doug Ford complained that Trudeau did not consult the provinces before he signed a new NAFTA agreement, essentially saying, why are you undermining democracy by not discussing with the people? Might I remind you, Ford, that you're the one that, against the will of the people, against the will of the courts, decided to cut the city council in half without anyone's permission. So you want to talk about undermining people's undermining democracy? That's you. You did that. So as much as you want to point fingers at Trudeau, I would say that it's not so much that Trudeau didn't consult the provinces, but that there should never have been a concession to begin with. There should never have been a re-signing of the NAFTA agreement, instead forcing the U.S. to go back to the old one. Doug Ford, you are a massive hypocrite. So think about that the next time you go pointing fingers at somebody for allegedly breaching democracy. So that's my thoughts on the new NAFTA agreement that we're not supposed to call the NAFTA agreement, even though the paperwork says the NAFTA agreement. Good night.
Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.